Welcome to the Arts to Hearts podcast, a show where we take a peek into the hearts and lives of our favorite artists. From running a creative business and practice to mindset, we talk about everything that goes behind into making a life and a career that you adore as an artist. Think of this as your happy hour with your favorite artist in your studio. Hear them share the messy and the wonderful side of creating and living a creative, heartfelt life within and outside our studios. As you tune in, be ready to be inspired and encouraged. I'm your host, Charuka Arora, an artist, designer, entrepreneur, and founder of Artist to Hearts project. Thank you so much for being here. Let's jump right in. Hey, you guys, welcome back to the Arts to Hearts podcast. This is your host, Charuka Arora, and I am here on a very interesting episode with a lovely, lovely artist today. And I've been following her work for a long time. She is exhibiting. She is an exhibiting artist in a recent online exhibit, Gaze, and she's also the cover artist of the catalog for Gaze. I have Phyllis Gorsen with me. She's an amazing artist, collage maker. I think she paints via collages. I think that's how I'm going to describe what Phyllis does. And she's based out of Philadelphia. Today we have her here on the podcast, and I am so excited to have you here, Phyllis. Thank you so much for coming.
Oh, thank you for having me, Charuka. I'm so excited.
Okay, first, thank you so much again for coming. But before we get into the episode, let's hear from you what you do, who you are, and anything else that you want to share.
Okay, so I would say for right now, I am a collage artist, but I've been a painter. I've been painting since I was 16. And I don't know how far you want me to go back, but right now I'm a collage artist. I paint my work, and then I actually, you said it beautifully, actually. I use paper and other materials like mark making as if I were painting. So I do the series of work that I'm making now are called collage paintings because I do infuse collage the way I would paint. So yeah.
Yeah, I think your work definitely looks like that and I think for a very long time, because of course I couldn't see your work in person, and sometimes when you on the internet you can't always figure the details out. And I was just going through your work. It would appear here and there, of course. And for a really long time, I did not know that you were using paper cuts, and
Oh,
I just assumed that it was a beautiful painting. And then one day I think I just went onto your profile or like somewhere, and I think I saw an installed shot and I saw the close ups, and I was like, oh my god, this is collage, this is paper put together. And I was so stunned. Since then I've been so stunned because of course they look
obsessive.
gorgeous paintings, but they're just amazing.
Oh, thank you. It's interesting because they take me a very, very long time. And I don't think I would have had the patience for this kind of work 10
You
years
really do
ago.
have a lot of patience, because
Yeah, I would not. I used to paint very quickly and I just wanted to get the images on the canvas. And now there's like a meditative factor in there. And they take me a long time, and I'm happy with where they are, but they do take me a long time to produce one piece. That's kind of the downside.
how do you think this shift happened?
Yeah, that is a timeline question. So, yes, I as I said, I've been painting since I was 16. And do you want me to kind of go back to the beginning?
Yeah,
I could
actually,
do that. I could go back to
yeah, my
how
first
does it all
question
start?
generally
Yeah.
is that.
So yeah, I went to college and I was majoring in art and business.
Oh,
And
wow.
yeah, I was majoring in art and business, and my father's like, "No, you're not." And I'm like, "Oh, okay." So almost I was pretty close to getting the art degree, but I ended up switching to economics.
Oh my
And
God, really?
I did, yes. And then I went straight and got my MBA. And then, oh, wait, it gets worse. It gets worse. So I went to corporate America, and I was a bond analyst, but I'm very, very analytical. So it was not a bad fit for me. And but it drove me crazy. Like it was like unrequited love, like year after year, I would eat my father's heart out and be like, why didn't you just let me figure it out? I would have figured it out. I needed to live it out. And um, so I would go to work and then I would take every class I could after work. I would in my business suit and I'd go there with my portfolio. And I think I hit every school in the area. And then um, I got something called a CFA, which was so difficult. But I was in the corporate America for a long time, but I was an artist on
How
the
many
side.
years?
14,
Oh
14.
my God, I can't
Yeah,
believe this. I
14
am
years.
so
But
surprised.
I did start exhibiting my work. I did start getting into shows, and I ended up at Pennsylvania Academy of Fine Art in the continuing ed program, and I did start exhibiting my work. And I had a son, and
Oh
after a
wow.
few years, I'm like, I can't take it. I have to live. I can't. I don't want to. My philosophy in general is die with no regrets, or with as little
Yeah.
regrets as possible. So I did go to Pennsylvania Academy of Fine Arts, and I did get my master's in 2012, and I graduated in
When you had a
2014.
son.
Yeah, it was really hard, and it was hard in many facets. It was physically difficult because
Yeah.
I did go to graduate school once before, and when you are
Yeah.
alone and you're by yourself, you have
Yeah.
so much freedom. I could study till 11 at night, no one cared, and but doing it later on, it was so much more difficult. And there was also a prejudice against people who are not 25 program. And
Yeah.
I felt that very keenly. And it actually made me crazy. It angered me because I felt like I was sacrificing so much more doing it at that point in my life than had I been younger. Um, but
What age
the
were
good
you by that time?
Oh, I was 45. I was 45 when I went, 44, something like that. Yeah.
Oh my God, I, I don't have. Oh my God, I feel like I am. I mean, you already inspire me so much, and now, I mean, hats off to you. Oh my God, I can't wait to
Thank you.
listen more.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I couldn't get it out of my head. Like when I told my friends I'm going back to school, they're all like, "Oh, thank God, about time," because it was driving me crazy. Um, I just
I'm
needed
sure
to
that
do it.
this decision must have not been like easy. I mean, going back to school at 45
Mhm.
after being working for 14 years of your life in corporate America,
Yeah.
and not that I think I don't know how things are perceived or how things were perceived while you were doing that, but also you're going back to school for art. I think, like, a lot of people would have
Yeah.
like their apprehensions. Why would you leave like a
Right.
safe, sound, money making career
Right.
for something that you'll spend thousands or more than that of dollars,
Right.
and like,
Mhm.
and then
Don't
doesn't
make any
even have
money.
a guarantee. Yeah.
um, Well, interestingly enough, though, I think you need some tough skin in the art world. I
Yeah.
think you need thick
Yeah.
skin. I think
Yeah.
my years doing, when I was in the business world, I was the youngest person walking to a room of people twice my age, and I had to carry my own. And
Yeah.
that took me a few years to master. But it also gave me the confidence today that I think
Yeah.
is helping me persevere.
Yeah.
It can be tough. It can be depressing. It can test your resolve. And I think in hindsight, like being able to really see my timeline, I really do think the first part of my life is is elevating the second part of my life. Um,
Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah, so I'm not sure I would have emotionally been able to handle like the rejections and the perseverance if I was back in my 20s and like suffering. Yeah, all
Yeah.
that stuff.
No, I think
So,
that makes sense.
and the second part of that is I am determined. I mean, I waited so long, it was so pent up that I am going to do or die, and I feel pretty solid about that.
Oh
Yeah.
my God. That is so beautiful. Okay. So you went to school while you were 45. You already had a son. You pursued your master's. What happened next? What kind of work were you making? How? Okay, I really want to know. Do you think why did you decide to actually pursue like a degree at that point instead of just maybe diving
Taking the
into on
work,
its own?
I felt like I knew what I didn't know. If that makes any sense.
Yeah,
I I I felt like I was missing the formal education, um, and I really wanted to immerse myself. It was very different than what I had expected. It was much more reading, a lot of
yeah,
writing, a lot of critics coming in and saying horrible things, and I would cry. After they leave, I'd be like, "Okay, bye," and then I'd be quiet for the next hour. It really master's programs in art schools are really kind of mean. They're not meant to nurture and build you up. They're meant to
yeah.
break you down and
Oh
test
my,
yourself. Um, and it's a very mean process. And I think I needed a good year after school ended to, yeah, I learned a lot. It's a good year. A good year. I think I was able to kind of, you know, wipe off the bruises and kind of feel like, you know what, I can do what I want to do. But it was really cleansing my palate. The one thing I could say that I learned is that you really should have an intention of what you're doing. It doesn't have to be
yeah,
like anything significant, but it should be focused, and you should
yeah,
really understand why you want to do it. So
yeah.
I do live through that. I really do practice that.
Would you, if you would like, if you get a chance to relive that time, would you still choose to go to art school or would you do otherwise?
What was funny is between that or medicine, strangely enough, and I decided, I don't know, like I think every artist would agree. It's funny. I gave this speech at the graduation, and I talked about this. It's like a calling. It's like a calling. You can't. Nothing else seems to alleviate that ache in the soul, uh, other than creating these pieces. Even though no one may care,
Yeah,
I don't know what it is. There's
yeah,
something about that feels spiritual.
I can show. Yeah,
And I,
absolutely.
yeah, that was my driving force. Only artists really get that. So I would say yes. I'd say I would do it. Yes, because of that.
Amazing.
Because that piece.
Okay, so you were in school
Yes.
and you had these all these critics, all these bruises. We'll also talk about that because I think it is a different deal because let's say when you're in your 20s and you're still fresh and young, um, what you hear from the other side, it's perceived in a different way. But when you're also coming from a different, like when you're putting way more things at risk, like let's say when you were at 45 going back to school, and of course you had way more things at risk at someone who's just beginning their life, and you're more mature, you're more um, confident, and you know what you want. Even if you don't know what you want as an artist, you still know a lot,
Right.
what you want
Driven.
as a human, yeah, how driven you are, what your strengths are, what your purpose in life. Like as we age, there's so much that I think as artists, we keep evolving. Our purposes keep evolving, our processes, all of those keep evolving. But in general, we keep getting much more clearer in who we are as an individual, who we are as a person, who we are. So I'm sure the way you must receive things and versus anyone else must have been a very different experience, and it would have been also very like how was that for you? Because it's not easy to receive those criticisms and have that experience when you were 45, when you've done so many things in life, you've worked in corporates and where you've led people, and then somebody comes in and just takes your work and just maybe just throws it out and like,
I
how
was
is that?
open though. I was in general. Uh, I'm pretty open to criticism. Like I'm willing to trust. people to tell me what they think. Um, and as an artist, I didn't feel evolved enough to have that kind of. I didn't have the confidence in the studio. I really
Yeah.
didn't. Um, so I was really open.
Hmm.
I It's weird because I did get a few comments from people. I quickly learned not to discuss my home life or
Yeah.
what was going on. Yeah, I just kept it. I kept everything very private. But I was open, and it wasn't just me who felt who went through the ringer with it. I think most people who went through the program felt very, very battered and bruised. Like I said, it's not nurturing. It's not meant to be nurturing, but I don't understand why not. It could
Why
be.
not?
It's just not. I think it's just the
Yeah.
nature of the beast. So I'm glad I did it. I'm very glad I did it. But back then, I was doing figurative painting. I really was, and
Oh,
um, my work was very quiet. I would say like it kind of captured the spaces in between, like those very banal moments that you don't think much about. Um,
hmm.
my friend had died earlier, like 10 years earlier, and I just never
Oh my God.
really grieved her death. And strangely enough, I kept on thinking to myself, like, I don't remember my friendship with her. I don't remember what did
Um,
I do with her? It's like when you think about your relationships,
yeah.
they're based
Yeah.
on like conversations or coffee or things you don't even think about. And so those are the
Yeah.
things that I wanted to capture, and that's how I started with well, had been doing figurative painting, and I started incorporating paper in there. I took a collage class, and I started incorporating paper in those paintings, even though people wouldn't know it. It would either be for texture or polite collage. So I actually started using paper back then in my
So
work.
that's a long, like, since you got into art school and while you were learning and everything, you started experimenting with paper during
Yes,
that time itself.
yes,
Okay.
yes, absolutely.
Amazing.
And I discovered a very bizarre comfort level with it. And I used to have all these like, when you go to a paint store, you get samples, those little paint chips. Oh, maybe you
Yeah.
don't have it in. Okay. So I had a bucket of them, and I would just meditatively make these um, abstract collages. And it was not meant to be finished work. It was meant to be this meditative process that just cleansed my palette
Cleanse, yeah.
and put it on. And I would hide them in my studio, and the critics would come in and they dig around and they would ignore my figurative work, and they'd pick out these
And go
little
find that.
collages and be like, "You should paint this." And I'd be like, "Really? You're looking at that? Ah, okay." I didn't know what to do with it because it's something that I just didn't feel it. I wasn't feeling it, but I put it aside thinking I would come back to it. And I did. I did later.
How did that shift happen?
So I was doing my figurative work, and I started getting interested in patterns, like the pattern. You have pillows in your back, so you have those pillows that have a pattern on it. You have a comforter that has a pattern, a rug, someone's shirt, and some of those patterns, like you see the pattern and you think of the person, or you think about the privacy of your bedroom, you think about the beautiful rug and how that rug is like family time to you. So I started getting really, really interested in the patterns of the things that I was painting. And I was doing a geometric pattern that was on the floor. And I was like, oh, why don't I just extend that with like hexagon canvases? So I started trying to incorporate that. And then I don't know what happened. It's just like one of those weird nights. And um, I said, this isn't working, but I like the hexagon canvases. So then I started painting uh, abstract work with shaped canvases. And at
Oh,
some point,
wow.
I started incorporating some of those patterns that I was doing in those collages back in school. However, even though they were abstract, they were representational. They were symbols of everyday life, even though the
Like,
symbols were not
yeah.
necessarily obvious. So
Yeah.
I started getting into that.
Amazing. How has your subject evolved? I think, like, let's talk about the recent work that you've been making, the one that we've also featured in the gaze exhibit that you don't didn't know you were a cover artist for the catalog. So good
Yeah,
morning.
I didn't see it. I was actually trying to find it. I didn't see it, but thank you. um, well, so paper actually started becoming my go-to. Like even when I would paint and it gets stuck. Like you ever fight with a painting? You fight with a piece of work. You're mad at it. You don't know what to do, and you put it in this pile. Like, ugh, I'll get back to you later pile. So I found that I have a bunch of paper, big pieces of paper that I paint, and I have buckets of it. And I would take these paintings out and I would just lay paper on it just to move my head a little bit, just to introduce weird shapes, weird colors, just to get me out of my funk.
Yeah.
Um, and I took a year off
Okay.
because I had three shows back to back. I had major back surgery. I hadn't quite healed from it. I was exhausted, and I took some time off. And by the time I wanted to come back, I had like a lot of family stuff. I had a death in
Hmm.
the family, and I had my stepbrother died, and my mom was had bad health problems, and I was taking care of her, and um, and then it was a year. It was a good year, and I came back in the studio, and I had been ping ponging between figurative work,
Okay.
abstract work, and I felt creatively confused.
Yeah.
So I took one of those pieces out of that pile, that like I don't know
Okay.
pile,
Yeah.
the naughty pile, and I did my first collage. I had
Oh
done
my
collages in
god.
the past, but it was like the first of this series. And in my
Yeah.
head, I wanted to do animals for such a long time, and
Oh my god.
I started incorporating them. And like everybody else during COVID, I was watching a lot of TV, Netflix, and I was watching
Yeah.
all those nature shows, and I I felt very separated from this wildlife that sustains us,
Yeah.
that gives us the
Yeah.
biodiversity. So I don't know, that's what started it. It was weird. Like, even though you take a break
Amazing.
and you feel like
Yeah.
that's one, like, I always come back from a break stronger. Always come back from a break stronger than,
It's always so hard, I think, and I can so relate to this. And I was just speaking to Kat about this yesterday only because since my mom's passing, I felt like I did not even. I mean, it's been 5 months now, and it's only in the past few weeks I realized that this was happening. I just after that I buried myself into work. I wanted to escape from reality, and then I just and I think when you don't have a lot of things in control, you always want to rely on to things that make you feel you are still in control of things. And I think that's what happened. And I just wanted not to feel those things. And I think that became a big escape for me. And a couple of 4 months later, like a few weeks ago, I felt I came to a point that I was done. My body, my mind, my soul, everything was so exhausted. I was so lost because I wasn't. Everything needed that break. Every part of my body, my mind, my soul needed that time, and it was so hard. I literally my mind and my body forced me that I had to because I just couldn't function anymore. And it was so uncomfortable, and I felt like my world was falling apart, that I wouldn't, because I think I had this fear that if I hold on, if I take that pause, I don't think I will have the strength again to put myself back together. And it's been a few weeks. It's been a couple of weeks. This episode is my first recording. This interview is the first recording of this month, and that generally never happens. So, I mean, I have now resumed back to recording. I'm still not going to the studio because studio became. I mean, I don't even know how this happened, but studio became a big place of trigger for me. I just because every time I would go there, I would be alone, and the moment I would be alone, I would go down the rabbit hole. I would just end up, you know have those miserable hours, and I would feel creatively so. I just didn't. I think I'm still in progress, and I've said this so many times that I lost my purpose, and I still don't know. I think there's, of course, there's purpose when you're making work, but a purpose of life, a purpose of who you are, a purpose. I think I I don't know, when you lose a parent, especially a mother, I think it the purpose of your existence, everything is just such a big question. And I feel like I am a few weeks into that break now, but I know at that point I was so scared, but today I just feel I know I have come to acceptance towards so many things. And I am feeling, you like you said, that it's always so hard to take that break, but you need that break because you come out better of it, and you learn things that you wouldn't.
I understand that. Like during the break, I felt very anxious because I was worried if I would be able to, pick up where I left off, or
Yeah.
exercise the creative muscles. Because when you take the break, you can really get separated from that. But
And I think,
I'm glad you are, because you suffered a tremendous loss, and
yeah,
I'm sure it's not just you. You're dealing with other people in your family,
yeah,
and at some point you have to feel okay with it. You do have to
yeah.
feel okay with it. You will be fine. Like if you're a creative soul, that doesn't leave you ever, ever.
I think it's also like, taking a break. When you're talking about taking a break or having these major shifts, um, I never painted plein air. I never painted outside and all of those things. And I was already experimenting a lot within my own work. So of course I was sharing. It was a huge transition for me to get into collage making in the past 2 years, and then I added embellishments, and I was still figuring out exactly where I wanted to be. And then when I thought I had figured it out, everything happened, and I feel like a very, very different person today. And after taking that break, I think it's even more scary because sometimes you feel that disconnect. If you're exhausted, if you're tired, if you're grieving, any of those things, you feel disconnected from who you are, and definitely you feel disconnected to your soul, to your creativity. And I think with what's even harder with these breaks are not only the situations, but like, I don't know if that happened with you or not. Like, I think some days I would wake up and I'm like, am I even an artist anymore? Or
Oh yeah, of course. Mhm.
will I
Yeah.
even ever get up and go back to the studio again? Or what am I even doing? Why am I like, one day I want to do this, the other day I want to make this painting, and the third day I want to do this, and that, because your soul still is finding its new purpose, its new identity. And it is so confusing, and it is, that break in itself feels so scary. And like, I think constantly this question arises, is this going to take me there, or or is it going to just confuse me more?
Yeah, it usually doesn't. The truth is, if you look at yourself like a piece of pie, like a pie, I mean,
Yeah,
art is only a piece of it. I mean, it's a very
yeah,
important piece, but the other pieces are family, friends, the other things that are important to you, and sometimes those other components just take and your health too, like your body,
yeah,
so sometimes those other things just take front and center, and that is part of your identity as well. And
yeah,
when that happens, when there's like, when one thing takes over everything else, it does make you question like who you are, because it does change your
yeah,
identity for that time. But
absolutely,
usually those things are temporary. I mean, you've
yeah,
lost your mom, and that's permanent, but you will find a new normal for yourself. But art is still
yeah,
there. Like that's still, that piece is still there. It's just other
yeah.
things have kind of crept forward, or just taking up a little more space.
I think it's also the time that we're living now in, that we constantly feel like we want to do something, or that you are not who you want to be. Let's say if you want to be an artist, or in that case, in anything, if you're a writer, if you're not doing that actively in the form, like in form of a performance, if you're not in that studio, I mean, so alternatively, I can't function without having something, creating something in a day. I need that to keep myself sane, but it doesn't have to be in a way that overwhelms me. So what I did was, I bought this tiny sketchbook that's been
I
quite
saw
popular on
that. I
Instagram.
love it. Yeah, I saw you got cat that. I saw you were using it. I
Yeah,
love that. I love little
yeah.
things. So
So,
I
and I'll
look at
tell you a
little.
story quickly about that, because so I don't live in the mountains, but I love mountains. I feel like my heart resides that. And I think one thing that's also changed is, um there is this, once you lose the comfort of your mother, that warmth, after losing that, I felt like I found that, it's, of course, it's not the same, but I found that peace and that warmth in nature. And my body really needed, like, my body and soul really needed that. And that is when, like, Kat would share these images, then, like, she stays in this forest and these, and I would always, like, my heart really 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 wanted that. And one day I stumbled upon this really tiny palette, and I was like, and I did not even I had no means to this kind of um scenery in that at that point. But I anyways thought I thought, like, I'd get her that, because it just felt so perfect. And I got one for myself. And eventually, I think, because my heart was actively looking for something and making an effort, I found a place where I go, like, at least 3-4 times a week now. And every morning, um 30 minutes, just 30 minutes. It's not an art that I need to sell. It's not an art that defines my identity, my body of work, the subject matter, all those things. It's just those 30 minutes that I feel like I am creating, because my soul wants to do that, and that I feel I want to make a connection, and I feel good about it. And I feel so good, because I feel like so many times we things the sole purpose of why we're doing what we're doing within this whole world and art world and exhibits and good and bad, and we sometimes just lose that. And it's so
Right.
important to reconnect to that.
Yeah. To create because of the love of it. Yeah. Yeah. I don't. I love when people can do that. People have said to me, "Why don't you just draw?" I used to draw all the time. I think I started out drawing incessantly, and now I don't draw at all. It's very very rare. Like sometimes I'll make a sketch or something. I have an idea book, and sometimes I do that. But when I go in the studio, it is like a lot of times it's like 12 hours at a time. I'm like all or
Oh,
nothing because it
wow.
takes me 2 hours. It takes me like 2 hours to really start getting
Tune in yourself.
into, yeah. I don't know why it takes me so long. It's frustrating, but so I don't even bother unless I know I have like a good chunk of time because I just can't click into it very
How
quickly at
often
all.
do you come to studio,
Not right
especially with the
now, not
pandemic?
as much, but I do try to come 3 times a week.
Okay.
Do try to, yeah, I usually come like 3 times a week, get my
Okay. Okay. So let's get back to where we were.
okay.
We've swayed away a little bit. Let's talk about where you, of course, you graduated from your school. How did things pan out for you then? How was it for you, when you, as someone who had her first career, starting starting a second career? How did you navigate? What was your experience of getting into the art world now, taking that degree
That's
and
a
everything?
really interesting question. I had like a lot of friends from school, but interesting about grad school, and I noticed this with the first grad school also. You know, grad school's different. People come from all over the country, and then
Yeah.
it scatters. So little by little, my I didn't have the same support system that I thought I would have, but eventually I found my people, and that to me was like that changed a lot for me. I was always painting, I was always submitting my work. Jewelry shows was probably the biggest thing. Um, and around, I met Kat. When did I meet Kat? I'm trying to think. She was like one of the first art
Where did
friends
you
that I
meet Kat?
made. I met her probably like 2015 or 16. I met Kat. I met Paula Cahill. I met Michelle Kishida. I met like a few people, and I had some art friends still.
Yeah.
But strangely enough, I felt like women were so much more instrumental for
Yeah.
elevating me or going to for advice. Like finding your people
Yeah.
was
Was
so much more important, in hindsight, more important than I even thought. And I thought it was important back then. I worked really hard to
yeah.
find it. And it was just by happenstance that I, that I did. So, um, but I kept on applying to shows, and eventually, like Philadelphia is small, small enough where people start to get to know your work. I
Yeah.
got more involved in Instagram. I was like maybe slow initially with social media, um, but I think getting people to know your work, I perhaps am a little different. Is that I changed my work. It was like figurative, abstract. Now it's the collage work, but I feel like all my work has a string
Drink.
of similarity in it. I still, maybe
Yeah.
other people can't see it, but I know where it came from, and I still feel
Yeah.
it's all related. Um, so at this point, I think people kind of know my work, and I have access to some places that perhaps I didn't have like 5 years ago. But
Yeah.
like everyone else, you need to constantly grow it. You still
Yeah.
need to make more contacts. You need to leave the areas of comfort, and that includes um, your physical area, your locale, and
Yeah.
just try to get your work out there. And that's where I am now. I feel really, really, really happy with the collage work because I feel like I landed in a place that I could stay for a very long time. It feels right to me. It feels like a
Yeah.
conglomeration of everything I've done, and I landed here, and I just have so many ideas of places where I could take this method that I've developed.
Yeah. Amazing. And where do you think your heart is going now? What do you um where is your heart taking you now? Where do you think your work,
Well, I
you
think
as an artist, are going?
I think I'm still, it's still always gonna, right now, I think it's still gonna stay figurative, and it's always gonna, right now, it's gonna incorporate animals. So I'm gonna continue with this current series that I'm doing.
Yeah,
And in
I
the
love
back of
this
my
series.
head, yeah.
I love these
um,
scenes because I feel like I dream of these. Like I really want to live a life where, like, the forest, these, like, the foxes, the fire, and I feel like the all of these recent work of yours are like right out of those dreamlands.
yeah, there is, right. These are all conjured imagery. So even though it's figurative, they're conjured scenes. Of course, I
Yeah.
don't see those things in imagery. So I make them up. Um, and it is important to incorporate that connection to nature that you're talking about,
Yeah.
and the
Yeah.
animal, the wildlife, scenery. Um, but it also is, for me, I want to, I guess, exude like a serenity in these pieces
Yeah.
that I want to get from them. I went camping as a child. I haven't gone camping for years and years. I don't, see, I'm like pale. I'm fluorescent. I like don't go outside very much. But I started to, I think with COVID, like everyone started to like really
Yeah.
appreciate nature
Miss.
more.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
miss
do
it
agree
and
with
just
that.
want to like be in it. So I think I'm going to stay here for a while, and then when I feel ready to move on, I have a few other places, some
To
abstract,
go.
perhaps some figurative, but yeah, I do have some other things.
Love that.
Yeah,
Amazing. Thank you, Phyllis. This was amazing. I think we could go on for hours. I could still
yeah,
talk. We spoke for long before the recording, and I'm so glad that we
yeah,
got to
yeah.
speak
That was
about
a
a
really
lot of things
fascinating
here as well.
conversation. Yeah, thank you
Yeah,
so
we
much,
need to do
Charuka.
that again. No, no,
Yes.
I'm not letting you go. So this is
Oh, oh,
now the second,
oh.
the
That's
last
right. I
part,
forget.
the second part. Yeah, so this is the rapid fire. I have a set of questions for you
Sure.
that that are fun, simple, but you have to be like, you have to give me what comes to your mind instantly, okay?
Okay.
And you don't have to think too much. There's no right or wrong. There's just uh, there's just you know
First
you.
thought. Okay.
Okay, are you ready?
Sure.
Okay, one thing that you want to convey through your work in the arts.
Oh, I would say dimension.
Perfect. What's that one word that describes you the best?
Uh, Passionate.
Love that. Okay. If you could have a studio anywhere in the world, where would it be?
Probably New York.
Really? Amazing.
Yeah.
And now, so I don't have to force myself into this one because you've already invited me. So I'm going to see you in New York soon in your new studio.
Yeah. Yeah.
Your biggest source of inspiration?
I'd say fantasy.
Love that. Okay. Who's your favorite women artist?
I'm going to say Endajeka and Keneally Crosby.
Perfect. I'm going to ask the link for this one and I'm going to link them in the show notes.
Yeah, she actually came to my studio. She was a visiting artist when I was at school, and I was lucky enough to
Oh,
get her
wow.
into my studio. And was such a fan of hers, and I was like, she came to my studio. Yes, so.
That is so fortunate. Amazing. I'm going to check her work out and I'm definitely going to link her work. Who is your go-to person when you're in trouble or in need of advice?
Ooh, I would say that's a toss-up between Kat and Paula
Oh,
Cahill.
wow.
Yeah.
Oh, love that. Okay. This is a little bit more than one rapid fire, but so let's do this. Can you share, like, I'm sure there must have been many, but can you share like one favorite moment, like a moment that you felt truly grateful to be an artist that you chose to do this?
Yeah. I would say it's a personal. I would like to say the shows and things like that, but I think it's when I have a breakthrough.
Yeah, absolutely. Perfect. If you were to meet younger Phyllis today, what advice would you give her?
Perseverance. If perseverance is the best way to reach any goal, that is the one factor. Perseverance.
Love that. Amazing. Okay. Shout out to an artist or many who are currently on your heart list / you're loving.
I love Aubrey Leventhal's work. Oh God, there's so many artists. Endajeka and Keneally, she's one of them. Jonathan Lyndon Chase, I love his work. Oh my God, there's so many. Micheline Thomas, Che Fueke. Yeah, these are like current people. They're all figurative, and they all have a very different way of doing things.
Really? I'm going to ask for all these links now. And I'll link them definitely. Okay. Amazing. That's it. Thank you so much.
Thank you so
Phyllis.
much. This was fun. It was so
really
nice
fun
to talk to you. Thank
same
you so
here.
much for
Same here.
having me.
I really had a pleasure. I had a great time before the recording and after the recording. Before I let you go, Phyllis, would you like to share anything that's coming up for you, or where people can find you, support you, or anything else?
Yeah, right now I have some work at PXP Contemporary. I have 4 pieces. 3 of them just sold, 2 of them just sold tonight, so I have 1 left.
Oh, wow.
Right now I'm kind of in the midst of writing a proposal with the gallery. I talked to a gallery and he wants me to write a proposal. So I'm in the midst of a few different projects. But my website is, I can give you my website. It's www.phyllisgorsen.com.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Phyllis. I really appreciate your time and for you doing this. And I hope I see you soon again.
Absolutely. I had so much fun. It was
Thank
so nice
you.
talking
Bye.
to you. Okay, bye.
Same here. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode. You can find all the details and links mentioned in the show notes of this episode available on www.arts2heartsproject.com. And if you like this episode, please don't forget to tag us in your stories and leave us a review here on iTunes or any of your favorite platforms. It really helps us to keep the show going. Thank you so much. I'm sending you lots of love and I can't wait to be back here soon again. Bye.